Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the House of Footy. We are back again with a full house today. I'm Ray, your host for today, and alongside me are Gio
Yo, yo, yo.
and Mac.
Good evening.
And on today's pod, we are reviewing the semi-final fixtures for the FIFA 2022 World Cup, and we will also be previewing the big one, the World Cup Final, taking place on Sunday, December 18th. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social medias, both on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is at @house_of_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and get in touch with us. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. Lastly, we are now uploading House of Footy YouTube videos, so please, if you can, like, comment, and of course, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our content. The link to that will be in our bios, both on Twitter and Instagram. But let's quickly review, guys, the semifinal matchups. Argentina 3, Croatia 0 was the first game. Mac, we were interested to see how that game was going to turn out with Croatia's midfield being sort of arguably one of the strongest midfielders in the tournament. Argentina did something interesting to match them up. They started off with Enzo Fernandez, Leandro Paredes, McAllister, and Rodrigo de Paul, and behind Messi and Julian Alvarez to sort of counteract that midfield three of Croatia. How did you see the game turning out?
I think that's an excellent point. I think that Scaloni, the manager for Argentina, game by game has adjusted his formation in the knockout rounds and really kind of tailor-made the players that he wants to bring on, the system that he wants to be able to play against that individual team. And thus far, he said every single right note. Going to that back three against Netherlands, and of course now against Croatia, shifting into more of a kind of, it's really a 4-4-2, but in all actuality, the two kind of left and right midfielders. In this case, it seems a lot of DePaul and McAllister are really central midfielders. They're tucking in and try to kind of bog up that midfield. And in this game against Croatia, something that we talked about in our preview is that that's what they really need to do. And they were very successful in doing so, where at some points, yes, Croatia had decent rotation of the ball, decent amount in possession, but it never seemed really threatening because there was always that extra man. And for Argentina, not just willing to make a regular tackle, was literally sliding in at the first opportunity to make that last-ditch effort because they know they have the next domino behind them to be able to get back up and get back into play. So that was very key for Argentina and really set the tempo for them. And as soon as they got their first goal, it really was, and it felt like on cruise control. At no point, from my opinion, watching the game, I thought Croatia really were a goal threat. I think at only one point, I thought that they might score was maybe a free kick late in the second half where it was already 2-0, and Lovren almost latched onto it. Other than that, for me, Croatia kind of seemed dead and exhausted, and really the threat up front wasn't good enough. And it's unfortunate for them, but because they have so much quality elsewhere on the pitch, where they just kind of had maybe that number 9 or more of a pacey winger to take somebody on, they could have been more of a threat to this Argentinian team. But in this game, for me, after the first goal, it seemed pretty much over.
Just a moment comes to mind in around the 30-minute mark. Modric starts to play, making one of the Argentina, I think, wide backs deep in his half. Build-up play was great. Ball ends up on the left-hand side to Ivan Perisic, who is basically one-on-one, and you're crying out for a striker in the box to feed the ball to. Doesn't happen. He goes one-on-one, shot gets blocked, gets wrongly called, I think, a goal kick. I think it was blocked and should have been a corner, but that's just how the game went. Gio, did you really see a way for Croatia to come back after conceding that first goal by Argentina?
The first goal, somewhat, but again, chances were slim. And then once the second goal was scored, it was almost that nail in the coffin. It didn't seem like Croatia could really generate much, like apart from the first 15 minutes offensively, maybe. But after that first goal went in, you saw definitely a nosedive in terms of, like their offense. It went really stale very quickly. And yeah, no, Mac hit it on the nose, with how this formation and who Scaloni started and how it benefited. It just clogged up the midfield. Passes weren't really getting through. Of course, they had, I think it was 61% of the ball. But again, that is that was pretty much pointless possession because, again, there were a lot of passes side to side as opposed to up forward. So I think you do have to give Argentina credit and definitely Scaloni credit the way he's adjusted and just the way they dominated in a way. Like they were very calm in every situation. It didn't ever look like they were ever going to give up the lead or even give up another goal for that matter. It was just a very solid performance.
And just referring to that first goal, I guess let's talk about it. The ball was played over the top by Enzo Fernandez, and the center back pairing of Guardiol and Lovren sort of gets split up because Guardiol is sort of trying to pinch up on Messi, blocking that short pass, leading to Lovren being essentially a one-on-one when the ball is played over the top. Loses the ball in the air, kind of, and then Alvarez gets in behind. Alvarez gets first to the ball, gets his shot off. Obviously not a great touch, but is obstructed by Vakovic. The penalty gets awarded, and Messi converts it. I guess at this point, do we want to talk about the awarding of the penalty at all? Any I guess objections to that penalty from you guys?
Joe, you go first.
I mean, in most leagues that I've seen and played in, and in those types of situations, you don't get that call. I was actually kind of shocked it was given, as the shot already kind of went off already. I mean it didn't stop the shot from happening, so I don't see how it could be given so easily, especially in a semifinal game. Harsh, but yeah, I mean it couldn't have been it wasn't overturned based on the decision of the ref. But yeah, no, I thought it was definitely a tough call for Croatia. And it kind of just, again, from that point, it kind of set the tone. Again, like I said, it was a nosedive in their offense. So yeah, no, very painful for Croatia.
I understand where Gio's coming from. I look at it, it's closer to 50-50 than kind of a harsh call. Because Livakovic, when he comes out to be able to block the shot, he tries to get down in a set position. And then if you watch back the video, he does stop his movements, but he extends his leg a little bit too far out wide. And I think that's the gray area where you could look at that is he kind of making the contact because he's the one that extended the leg? I think that's the conversation, as well as maybe does VAR have the opinion that Alvarez, it was a horrible attempt of a chip, but if he doesn't make contact with him there, is he still favored to get the ball back right afterwards, right? I think that's another piece. Because he's still in alone by himself. Lovren and Guardiola are still a little bit distance behind him, and then maybe you're at a 50-50 race. So I think in both those areas, it's kind of like flipping a coin, and Alvarez at least one of two of those, and therefore it was called as a pen. It's and the tough part is that this has been a consistent theme in this World Cup, and we may come into the France game as well, where a lot of people are looking at certain calls and VAR's not even asking the referee to come take a look to, hey, we might be wrong here. Let's at least double check this quickly. And they're just letting the play go without any forethought. So with the consistency of this World Cup, I can see why it was given. I can see why it stood. But I agree with Gio in a lot of ways where regularly someone's taking a second look at that, or at least pausing to really, really think about it. And that didn't occur. So that part's disappointing to me.
Yeah. Regardless, though, Messi converts the penalty. I think probably his best penalty of the tournament so far. I think he scored Gio, like 3-4 penalties so far already.
So let me try. Why is it Pinaldo but no talks about Messi just scoring pens?
I mean,
do you want me to directly answer that? Because I can, and I can.
And then you're gonna say, "Oh, Ronaldo hasn't scored in a knockout round, but he gets pens."
No, but he hasn't scored. Ronaldo has not scored in the knockout rounds, and only in this World Cup scored a single pen. That's it. Whereas Messi,
no. But you're not understanding what I'm trying to say.
But as well as majority of Messi's goals did not. If I recall correctly, he scored 2 that were not from the penalty shot. If I remember correctly, so he scored 3 from 3 pens, 2 non-penalties. So still more. It's just as well as if you look out through their entire career in terms of kind of who's relied more on penalties, who's taken more penalties, and who. Let's be fair here. In terms of every situation, if there's a penalty going to be taken, do you, Ronaldo in any other situation given a penalty to his teammate where he could have taken instead? No. Whereas Messi, He's given it to Neymar, Suarez, Mbappe. It's very different. So I understand why you would be hurt by that, Gio. I apologize, but it's not true.
Nah, it's just the energy's not there. The energy's not there.
It's okay.
I'm not feeling it.
I mean, it's just the way the tournament's gone so far. Argentina has had like you guys just said, like 3 penalties awarded already. So he's the penalty taker. But let's move away from that into, I guess, the second goal. Before we go on to Messi again with his assist in the third goal. The second goal, and very much like the first goal, just that little detail in terms of losing their man and being out of position. Second goal comes from a corner that is defended away by Otamendi. Messi gets first to the ball before Brozovic, who basically, by him winning that ball, leads that counterattack where Alvarez just plays pinball against the 2 defenders that were blocking him and does well to finish. But again, it's just those slim margins that really cost the game for Croatia, who I don't think were horrible. It's just, and I guess I'll ask for you guys, it's just, I don't think they came out with as much conviction, and the longer it went 0-0, for example, with the Brazil game, it suit their sort of play style, whereas Croatia, in a tournament where you really have to have a game plan and not just go as the game, as the other team attacks, you really have to come out with your own game plan and really put yourself in the front foot to get a goal. What did you think, Gio, about sort of those goals and Croatia coming back?
Again, slim margins. I thought, the defending was poor, and as soon as it got into the box, there was a chance for the defender. I'm not sure if it was Sosa or not, but there was a chance for him to clear the ball and just boot it away. But again, whether it was his balance or whatever, it was off. And the ball bounced back to Julian Alvarez, and Julian Alvarez was the ready player. So again, you don't take credit away from Julian Alvarez and being there and being ready. That's his duty on the pitch. You definitely look at Croatia's defense here, and like you've been solid for so long in the tournament, and time and time again you've been so strong back there. But in the most crucial time where it's a 1-0 game or a 2-0 game where you don't generate too much offense, and you let that one go, that's kind of when it was the nail in the coffin, and you could tell. They're all hanging their heads, and it was pretty much kind of like not park the bus from Argentina, but hey man, we get the ball, we play it around. If we get a chance, we go for it. If we don't, hey, cool.
And go forward they did with that third goal. So Mac, I guess let me hear from you. What did you think about that setup by Messi?
So it's so fascinating because I don't think there's ever been a soccer player, a football player in the history of the game where he's dangerous at the halfway line and you're already scared of what he could do. And when you talk about, I guess, Messi through his career, in certain moments, you're just like, oh, do you remember that goal where you scored and you started at the halfway line? And he's the only player you can ask which one, because is it the ones at the Champions League, La Liga, World Cup. Now it's a consistent theme for him where he has the ability just to almost do it entirely by himself, even at this age, right? Where he tees it up for Alvarez is probably maybe one of the easiest goals he'll ever score. It's very simple for him to be able to do it. And the tough part is you look at Guardiola, he's like, he didn't defend that horribly. He kept pace with them. He was able to slow him down, waiting to delay him as long as possible. Messi just had the dream shake on him and passed it a tempo earlier with his right foot instead of switching over to his left to Alvarez that he couldn't expect. So I look at that goal more so than the others where what can you do? There's not much you can really do with that. You can't really look at individually, I feel like, blame him for that. Versus the other goals, you can look at it, you know what? You could have done something here. You could have done something here. If that was the one goal to be able to separate the two, you gotta be able to live with that, right? It's very similar with basketball. It's like in terms of, and Ray, you brought this up before, is where it's great offense beats good defense. And that was decent defense, but unbelievable offense. And he's one of the few players, like in basketball, like Steph Curry, from half court, you're already still shaking. So that goal, that run, it sealed the game. And I think very much if Argentina goes on to win the World Cup, that will be replayed hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of times throughout history. Because that would be his Argentina iconic moment if they do go on to win, of course.
Okay, and lastly, let's just wrap it up. Obviously, at the 81st minute mark, Modric substituted out of the game. A class touch by the Croatian manager. Really, game's done by that time, and he just wanted him to get that recognition. Gio, I guess overall thoughts on that Croatian, or just Modric in terms of his, I guess, reputation for that Croatian side and how well he's done.
I mean, he's been a staple in that team for so long. He debuted at 20, and he's 35, and that's crazy. That's crazy. No, wait, no, he's not 35, is he?
I think he might be 37.
He's 37.
Older. Yeah. I think he's 37 because he's 2 years older than Messi. They debuted at the same time.
Exactly. In the same game.
In the same game, actually. Yeah. So with that being said, hey, he's did it for 17 years for his country. He's carried his back. He's the one staple name that will always be assimilated to Croatian football, and I think he can forever be proud of that. Although they didn't win in 2018, carrying your country to a final is fantastic, and to have this run near the end of your career, it's a great swan song. It's unfortunate that he came against very good teams, but the fact of the matter is, it's hard to say if we'll ever come across another Croatian player of that talent and that type of longevity. At least.
Longevity, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I have a question that I'll ask you guys later on, but for now, let's take a quick break here, and then let's talk about France-Morocco. So, stay with us, guys. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We're going to continue our semifinal review with France 2, Morocco 0. Interesting for this game, Gio Konate and Fofana started in place for Adrien Rabiot and Upamecano, who I think Rabiot was out with illness, and I'm not sure if Upamecano was also out with illness.
I think that was the case. Yeah.
Right. And so Morocco instead actually played a back five, a 5-4-1 with Roman Saiss, who actually started but had to go off after 21 minutes. But early goals really changed the game for Morocco. What did you think, Gio?
Yeah, no, I think it worked out perfectly for France. I think the early goal kind of opened up the game for them. Like I think Mac and I both mentioned in our last podcast that this was our score prediction, and it played out exactly how we thought it would play out. France to get an early goal, and then opens up the game. Again, it was another one of those games where possession wasn't the tell-all story of the game. France just took advantage of their chances, and they were comfortable with the players on the field that they could defend and just really kind of kill the game, to take the opportunities that they had them, but not necessarily force them to force another counterattack. They attacked well on they actually played the counter, which was very nice to see. But yeah, there was even another chance where France could have put it away early after the first goal. I think it was the 35th minute, where a through ball was played to Mbappe, and instead of scoring the ball to Giroud, who was dead open in the middle, he decided to be selfish, maybe to secure the golden boot, possibly. But no, he didn't pass it up. So, hey, but again, shout out to Theo Hernandez though, from villain to hero, to score an early goal. I think that does wonders for his confidence. But yeah, no, France took care of business. It was very calm. But not to take anything away from Morocco, there were chances, and there were periods of time where we thought Morocco had a chance to score, and it was just it wasn't the game we were used to seeing from Morocco. So I think in terms of being clinical, I think they lacked a little bit of that, just because they were not used to going forward this often, and having plays and crossing the ball in and trying those types of shots. But yeah, no, France was very sound.
and conceding double the amount of goals that they conceded the whole tournament as well. So, but yeah, I just
Facts.
wanted to mention that. Mac,
Facts.
did you see anything different? Or do you agree with Gio?
In a lot of ways, I agree with you. I think the key distinction would be is that we predicted that this is probably what will happen. France could get an early goal. I didn't want it to happen though, because I want to see France to be able to come out and see kind of what they have. Once they got that goal within the first 5 minutes, it's like, oh, we can go back to regular standard play and sit back and play on the counter, which is unfortunate because I want to see them express themselves because they have a lot of quality players, but they strictly play kind of tournament football. To their credit, it gets them where they want to go. Every Jose Mourinho fan will definitely be happy to see it. But if you want to see kind of like beautiful football, players willing to be able to go at other defenders, try to be able to create opportunities, that doesn't give an exciting match. The good part, though, is Morocco, we're up for it. So as soon as we got conceded, no, we're not going to kind of stick to kind of our game plan. We're going to be able to go at them, and we're still going to make sure that we're going to try our best to score a goal here and get back into the game. So full credit to them for that. I think overall, in terms of unexpected goals, they edged out France. In terms of possession, they edged out France. I think that it was a very strong performance from a team that, to be honest, pre-tournament, I had zero expectations for. I think I had them last in the group. So phenomenal display throughout the entire tournament, win against every one of my expectations. And I think in a lot of ways, they're unfortunate not to come out with a better result because, in my opinion, and it's tough. This is back-to-back games. France look like the worser team, but still got through. So it's tough. What do you want? It's hard to take meaning from that. Does that mean they're winners? Does that mean kind of you have that kind of what you may have brought up right before in our previous podcast, that Real Madrid mentality of like a destiny team or whatever, right? Or is it they've just been incredibly lucky and they've had a couple calls go their way? So it's tough to kind of which side of the ledger you really kind of lean on. But for Morocco, I don't know if we want to be able to get to this now. That penalty shout, I don't know if you guys saw it back because I missed it in game. I think it was Buffal.
Theo Hernandez. Yeah.
And Theo Hernandez, where Buffal actually was fouled by Theo Hernandez. The ref called a foul on Buffal instead and gave him a yellow. And there's been a lot of hubbubaloo after the game. I think Morocco come out and filed a complaint asking for a rematch, which they should know when they filed that it was never going to happen. But they still did it anyway. So it begs the question, why, right? Looking back at it, I could see what they're saying. That definitely looks like a foul on Theo Hernandez. On Buffal. No VAR, again, consistently see through this tournament where referee makes a poor mistake and VAR just looks the other way. Maybe they're playing games on their computer, who knows? But I'm very... I guess I wanted to ask you, why would they do this? Why would they come out after this game? Or do you think maybe the initial call was correct?
I did agree with the initial call. I think Theo Hernandez got to the ball first, and then the follow through caught Buffal. I think the yellow card was more so for dissent rather than actually the actual play, because I didn't see anything wrong with it. It's just he got there first. I don't know why they would have done so. Maybe just obviously they are in such a position where they could literally make history and be in the World Cup final. But yeah, like I said, there's really no chance that it's gonna really change anything, I think. But interesting to see what the results will be coming out with how maybe Morocco approaches their next game and if that has any effect on France at all. What did you think, Gio, I guess?
No, I think I would agree with you for the most part. I think they did it just as, if France were to move on and, potentially win, they can always have the argument that, we could have been there. But again, tough shout to kind of a reach to say that, counting out Argentina like that. But, I guess that would always be in their back pocket if they, had an argument at a bar or something,
Yeah, just going back to what Mac mentioned in terms of France, really, we don't know if they just are serial winners or they're getting just lucky in these results. But I think something that we cannot count out is how well Griezmann has played all tournament. Gio, you mentioned that, and
yes.
a player that we haven't really mentioned, to his credit, is Hugo Lloris. He hasn't so far made a mistake. Early on in the game, I think at the 10-minute mark, Wani has a shot where it's not a terrific save, but it's something that you you expect Hugo Lloris to make. And it just shows that, even though they were peppered with shots, I think towards the end of the first half, Morocco looked more likely to equalize rather than France to actually extend their lead. Balls coming into the box, he's able to actually use his presence and keep them out and sort of slow down the play when needed. So just wanted to point that out. But Griezmann, Gio, how big has he been for France so far?
He finally got a man of the match. But I could argue that he could have had a couple under his belt already. Again, not necessarily being on the score sheet in terms of obviously scoring goal or even assisting on goals. It's everything else that he does, being everywhere on the pitch. Like I've muttered time and time again in this podcast, especially throughout the World Cup, is that him and Rabiot just do the dirty work, so the other players, the other offensive players, don't have to and don't tire themselves out and focus more on the other things. So again, those don't show up on the stat sheet, but they do it time and time again, and every single game in and out, and they do it at a very high rate at that. So yeah, you definitely have to give credit. Again, I wasn't a believer at first, especially in Rabiot, but no, they played great, and I guess Real Madrid. No, sorry, not Real Madrid. Atleti, who has finally paid Barca. The amounts that they agreed on or didn't agree on, can finally use him to to his maximum capabilities now. After the World Cup, just seeing how well he has played, and hopefully Rabiot turns a corner and is able to perform well for Juve as well. But no, they've been outstanding the entire tournament.
Okay, Mac, there was a chance for Morocco in the 75th minute mark in midfield where Tchouaméni gets dispossessed. Hamdallah has the ball. He takes it, drives at the back line. There's, I think, 3 instances where he can shoot. And in the group chat, you were like, hey, just shoot the ball. And it didn't happen. And I guess it just goes to show how the night went for Morocco. But is there any, I guess, danger in sort of that midfield for France heading into, I guess, their last game? Just touch on it quickly before we preview the game.
Absolutely. A lot of danger there. That's definitely the weakest point of the team. Griezmann has done so much for them. If you would ask me, if France win, who the player of the tournament should be, it should be him. Probably won't get it. Probably go to give it to Mbappe because he has the bigger name. But Griezmann has been their most vital player, if not their best player as well. So their midfield definitely has a lot of weak holes. Even if Rabiot is playing, he's not kind of the straw that stirs the drink. He just kind of does a job in there. And depending on, we'll touch on this later, but it'll be interesting to see how Argentina match up against them, as well as Konate for France was absolutely phenomenal. I think throughout the game he had, I think it was the most interceptions, no player blocked more shots, and had the most amount of clearances through the game. So him, partner Varane were vital in regards to be able to make sure they can hold on to that lead, and they covered the cracks of what that midfield could provide it. The Hamdallah shot, lack of shot actually. And someone put this in a chat. I finally understood in that moment how those Man City fans for years were yelling at Gabriel Jesus to shoot after KDB would put a ball into him, and he was like, "No, next one, no, maybe no, that one's not the one I like. Let's try another one." And then at that point, everyone's back in. What the fuck are you doing? So I was like, "Oh, what do you, Buff? Just hold." Even if he's like, "Okay, it might get blocked. It might hit off somebody, right?" And the thing is, it wasn't as if there was a better pass option available. It was him. Like, there was nothing else you should be looking at. He was just, it was poor decision making on his behalf. And I think it's unfortunate, but for the rest of his life, he'll have nightmares of that moment, knowing that he made that mistake. So you gotta feel bad for the guy.
Great shout out to Konate. I know we had that discussion between who should start in this game, and obviously Konate started and proved why he should have started in this game. France conceding more possession in this game, so it turned out as you'd expected, Mac. But Gio, you touched on it again. If you don't finish your chances, just like what Mac mentioned, 2 minutes later, what happens on the other end? Mbappe with his quick feet, deflection, goal.
Hey man, good teams put away chances. And I can't stress that enough. And people say, "Oh, if they only," it's if, but it's also should. You should put those chances away if you're a strong team, strong finisher, right? Like when you look back at the England game, Hurricane should have put that away. They let an opportunity slip, and France moves on. It's simple as that. You got to put your chances away.
Exactly. At this point, we are gonna take one last break, and then we'll be back previewing the. I guess we'll touch on the third place playoff, but the main game, obviously, is the World Cup final between Argentina and France. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be back. Stay with us. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. Just to round off the podcast, we are going to preview the third place playoff between Morocco and Croatia, and as well the World Cup final. But let's quickly talk about Morocco-Croatia. These teams will meet again after facing off in their first game of the World Cup back in match day 1, which is actually November 23rd, so almost a month ago. It was 0-0 that day between Croatia and Morocco. Croatia dominating possession, but both teams sort of had they both had the same amount of shots on target, which is 2, but Morocco ended up having 3 more shots in total, 8 compared to 5. Obviously, both teams are now disappointed they're not in the final. Morocco going into this game with a lot of injuries, but they do have that, I guess you can say, home crowd, because it feels like a home crowd with the amount of support they have. But on the flip side, Croatia, Gio, we were talking about this. It could be the last dance for Modric. We're so close to winning the World Cup 4 years ago. Semi-final loss this time. Maybe he can end up with a positive note and win not the big one, but still a bronze medal in the World Cup. How do you think this game will turn out, Gio, and what do you predict?
I actually think both teams are going to come out and want to win this game. More so Morocco, just because of what they've already accomplished as a team at the World Cup, and for such a team that was kind of looked over most of the tournament. They got a lot to win and they got a lot to play for. Third place, at this World Cup, it would be phenomenal for not only their country but like football going forward for them. They're gonna want to do well and want to put more into their program and know that it's possible for them to make it deep into tournaments. But on the flip side, I think, as much as, you say it's a third place game, I think more so, even if Modric didn't want to go out there and really perform at a top level, I think everybody around him who he's led will want to go out there and play for him and win at least his last game wearing that Croatia shirt at the World Cup. So beyond that, I think everybody's going to want to come out and compete. As who I think will win, I really wanted to go to pens. It ended 0-0 last time. How fitting would it be for it to go to pens for both teams? And I would want Croatia to. I mean, both keepers have had fantastic tournaments. Both should be in the talks for the Golden Glove. But again, my heart is with Modric, so I would want Croatia to win, just so he has a little bit of a swan song.
Okay, same question, Mac.
I think this game, neither team really would want to play in. Obviously, they would have wanted to be at the final. So having, especially that quick turnaround for Croatia coming off just a couple days later, they'll have lesser time for recovery to be able to get into this game. And they've had a string of long games to be able to begin with as well. So I lean Morocco. Reason being, I'll be very interested to see how many players for Croatia can get up in terms of the excitement, the energy, because the Lovrens, the Brozovic, the Modric, the Perisic, this is not the stage they really have played for. They wanted to be able to play in the final just as they did 4 years ago. So I feel like they may not bring the same level of energy, whereas Morocco, if they win this game, it's still, no matter what happens, obviously it's a great success, but if they win this game, they cement themselves even further in the history for Africa, for the Arab nation. They're going to be pushing really, really hard, and I would be shocked if all the key players don't try to be able to play the full entire game, whereas for Croatia, if you told me right now Brozovic or Perisic or Lovren or a player like that doesn't start, I wouldn't be surprised, because maybe they're thinking already we have to go back to our clubs, we still have a lot to be able to play for there. What can we do on that end? I don't think they will kind of risk as much to be able to win this game, whereas Morocco, I think, would be willing to do so. The only other side against that is maybe those players that Croatia does bring in, they get to showcase their talents and be in a position where all eyes are really on them, and maybe this puts them in a position to make a transfer to a different team or get their name out or kind of set the next era of Croatian football going forward and maybe be a talisman for them. So I could see both ways of why one team may edge it out. I lean Morocco, given the fact I feel like they're going to go all out for all 90 minutes for us. I wouldn't be surprised if Croatia floats the first 45 minutes as in a daze of, I can't believe we couldn't get through.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of what happens, will definitely be a big storyline, and we'll definitely touch on it in our next review. But let's preview the big one, Argentina versus France. And obviously the big sort of storyline here is Messi could win his last World Cup with Argentina after failing to do so in 2014. As well, Mbappe on the flip side could have 2 World Cup wins to his name by the age of 23, and could be one behind Pelé, who has the most World Cup wins with 3 in history. So Argentina, France, and just to preface it as well, Argentina started with a loss in their opening game against Saudi Arabia, but have been building up through the tournament and had their best result against Croatia, I think, in the semis. Whereas France have been pretty consistent throughout the tournament, even though they didn't have the best squad going in. Obviously, Conte, Pogba, and Nkunku, Kimpembe, and Benzema were out of the tournament, the squad before the tournament started, because Hernandez picked up his injury in the first game, and they've just been consistently getting through to it. So, Mac, give us, I guess, your predictions. What would you expect? Some key matchups. Give us your preview.
So I think the first coach to make a move will be Scaloni, because he really has to decide going into this game what formation he's going to play. In this previous game, of course, he ran with the 4-4-2 with Paredes, DePaul, Fernandez, and McAllister. Does he revert back to a 4-3-3 with Di Maria on the wing instead of Paredes? Or does he go full shift back to Netherlands and play a back 5 with the same midfield, kind of their key midfield 3, and of course Alvarez and Messi up top? He's ran those the last 3 previous games. It'll be interesting to see what he chooses there. I think that could have a large impact on this game. In my opinion, I actually really like the 4-4-2 for them in this matchup. One, because the midfield depth that they're able to kind of put in, where I guess only really at the Theo Hernandez size you have to worry about an attacking sense, so you can overload your midfield to that side and try to get Messi on the break in behind a Theo Hernandez, because that's probably he's the one that's going to be joining in the overlap to go in and around Mbappe, and that will probably be the open space, especially if Upamecano comes back for France, who's been fairly weak thus far this tournament. Messi has them one-on-one. I think will be a very tough situation. If Guardiola had a rough day, I think Upamecano will have an even worse day. I think that's an interesting matchup to be able to look at if that's what does take place, and what I would assume Argentina do. But I feel like that will be the first move. I don't want to go into my predictions just yet, but I feel like after that, in terms of the matchups for France, we haven't seen a Dembele masterclass yet throughout this tournament, I would argue, right? Where he hasn't taken the reins of a game. And on the other side, they could very much do very well. I know I've been calling it all tournament. Maybe this is the game, because Acuna is coming back for Argentina, boys. And that's a rough day for any Argentinian fan out there. Because if Dembele has a decent game, and let's say Argentina are happy whenever Acuna doesn't have the ball. And if Dembele's running on in one-on-one, it's dangerous days. So I think that those are the matchups I'm looking at going into this game.
Okay, Gio, I guess same question to you. How do you expect this game to play out?
Again, if we're talking matchups, you have to look at the midfield. You have to look at, will Tchouaméni have another lapse of judgment, especially with a caliber of player of Messi running at you, or even the confidence in Julian Alvarez, who's put a couple, by the keepers. So I think it'll come down to that. I think we'll see a lot to be successful for France in terms of doing their best to try and neutralize. I can't say to shut Messi down, because nobody can really shut Messi down. To contain Messi is the better word for it. we're gonna have to see a lot from who we have talked about and gave high praise to is Adrian Rabiot, is how he really uses up his energy to sort of ball deny from Messi, or almost man mark, but not completely man mark. I think it's going to come down to those matchups. How Messi takes advantage of Tchouaméni, who's obviously we've seen has had a couple of lapses of judgment. The one that we are more familiar with is the tackle on Saka that awarded England their penalty. And then hopefully we see another great game from Rabiot, who again has been putting in great work to see how he tries to stop Messi. I think that's the key matchup. And again, you have to throw in the Dembele and Cunha, because every time Acuna touches the ball, it never ends up on another Argentinian foot. So I know Mac agrees, but yeah, I think
the worst part is Tagliafico plays so well against Croatia.
He really did. He
played so well. He just didn't make a mistake, right? So let's bench him. I'm not mad.
Yeah. I think those are the key matches that will kind of define the game, because I think you can expect a lot of the same from everybody else. Giroud is always going to be a goal threat at this point, and for anybody who's gonna ignore that and think that he's not, you're kind of playing yourself at this point. And as much as Mbappe hasn't had a really breakout game either, you can't afford to really take a step back on him either. So, I mean, chances I think will favor France, but it's gonna be a chess match. It's gonna be a chess match for sure.
It's too close to call it. And going into the game, I thought it's kind of one-sided, but then the way I expect the game to play out is basically this. We saw France very, very comfortable conceding possession to Morocco, a team that averaged, I think, around the 30% possession mark for each of their games. They had double that possession. So France will be okay without playing with the ball, and Argentina will dominate the ball in possession. Maybe not creating as many chances, but definitely with the ball a lot more of the time. The important parts, I think, are like those fine margins against Croatia. The transition. Gio, you covered it. That rapid pace by Mbappe in the counterattack. 35 minutes into the game against Morocco. So it's like when Holland is playing for Messi. It's Kevin De Bruyne has the ball. Hey, Holland's in the box somewhere. Just put it in. Mbappe is on that side somewhere. Just dump it in behind the wide back, and he'll get to it. So that's definitely going to be, I think, an interesting matchup to see France trying to hit Argentina on the break, especially when they throw numbers forward to try to create chances by overloading spaces. On the flip side, I'm not sure if you guys caught this, but it's 57 minutes into the Argentina-Croatia game. Messi had a chance on the left-hand side where if he was like Ronaldo, a few years younger, a little bit quicker, it would have been in the back of the net. Instead, shot gets saved by Livakovic. Ball comes back out, and Guardiola takes a couple touches out towards the corner flag. And Alvarez and Enzo Fernandez are on him at the corner flag, trying to prevent him from clearing it. And so that counter press by Argentina, whenever France loses the ball, will be, I think, the key part for when they do create chances. But I guess apart from that, just want to mention again, Argentina could win it for the first time in 36 years, first time since 1986, and France could be the first team to go back-to-back since Brazil 1958 and 1962. So, Gio, I guess your final predictions and some thoughts?
Just a quick little stat. Players with most chances created at Qatar. Of the top 5 right now, 4 of them are French players. Number 2 is Messi with 18, and number 1 is the workhorse Antoine Griezmann with 21. Following is Theo Hernandez, Dembele, and Kylian Mbappe. So in terms of chances created, I'm not sure if those numbers will translate to the finals, but we can definitely expect a lot of goal threats from France, as they do love going forward. And so I think as much as Tchouaméni and the French defense have a lot on their plate in terms of containing Messi, I think you can say the same about the Argentinian defense, who for the most part, have looked decent. But again, depending on who they start, Christian Romero.
He still hasn't got a red card. He still hasn't got a red card. I'm waiting.
Just beware. He hasn't faced Mbappe yet.
I could easily see him taking him out and getting a red card this game. I could easily see that happening.
100%. If they're all... Yeah, no, I can definitely see him taking a red card.
I feel like there's only one team, if there's going to be a red card in this game, is going to get the red card. It'll be Argentina. They have a lot of suspects of who it could be. Paredes comes on for 2 minutes. Romero does it. Otamendi does it. They got a lot of mans that would do it. 100%.
Absolutely. But in terms of prediction, this one's a tough one. But you...
Let me stop you. Argentina are actually plus 100, and France are negative 125. So France are technically the favorites, but please give us a prediction.
Initially, I thought it would be 2-1 France, but judging from what Max says, and we are agreeing that it will be quite the chess match in terms of seeing which team kind of makes the mistake. I still think it'll end 2-1, but I think it'll end 2-1 in extra time. I think apart, because we know how conservative the French manager can be. So I think it will be 1-1, and neither team will want to make that mistake as the game progresses. So I think it will end 2-1 for France in extra time.
Okay, I guess same question for you, Matt.
So before I answer that question, I want to ask you guys a question. How many teams throughout history do you think has made back-to-back World Cup finals after winning the first one? And were able to try and had the attempt to defend their title? Ray, you've said one already earlier in your earlier stat with Brazil. So there are 4 other teams.
Okay, I cheated. I know one. I think it's Italy's one for sure because I was looking at the teams that went back to back. So Italy's one. That's my only other guess.
So Italy and Brazil. That's correct. And we have 3
France
more.
Another one? Was
France is not another one. This is the first time they've done it. It's only happened 6 times throughout history, and there's 3 other teams.
Argentina, I think, also.
Argentina is another one. That's correct. So they made back-to-back finals. And sorry, this is just making back-to-back finals, not winning and successfully defending your title. So Netherlands also made back-to-back finals, and Germany's also made back-to-back finals. Only 2 teams have won back-to-back finals, and that's Italy and Brazil. So the other times, the teams lost. So odds are, if we look at history, that France, even though they may make the final, and that's happened before, it's tough for them to come back-to-back and win it, maybe not just having enough juice for the tournament. Maybe there's too much changeover for a certain team and that mentality's not there. So, however, I'm going to completely subvert that and ignore my own stat. I think France in this individual game probably have a little bit too much for Argentina offensively out wide. That's more so what I'm concerned, where if you get a player one-on-one out wide, you draw in a center back, and there's Giroud one-on-one in the box against a Romero, against an Otamendi. I think that could be a very rough day. And I think France have the quality, especially in Griezmann, to be able to find those wingers to create those outlets. I could easily see them getting that early first goal and just sitting back like they've done throughout this tournament and calling it a day, because I feel like Argentina will have to have more time to grow into the game to pick kind of the weaknesses apart for France, and it'll take longer for them to be able to do that versus France being able to hit them on a counter and getting that early lead. So I'm edging France here 2-1. I was going to go for extra time, the exact same prediction as Gio, but I'm just for the sake of a slight difference, I'm going to do 2-1 in regular time.
Hey, Mac, last time we agreed, it happened because we agreed 2-0 Morocco. Oh, I mean France versus Morocco.
Yes. I'm not here to speak into existence, you dickhead. I'm just letting you know. I'm letting you know. If you were to ask me what my unbiased opinion in terms of who I think would win, I think it would be France. Obviously, I want Argentina to win. The history, kind of the legacy, what this would mean.
Right.
Obviously. But I think France do have a deeper squad. However, I don't think it's clear-cut. I think this is really much, just like the odds have it, as much of a toss-up as you can get. My thing is, I think Argentina are more of a team to try to create something and take that risk, whereas France would not. And therefore, in tournament football, generally means I'm going to give you that slight edge favorite of that 2-1.
It's tough. It's really tough to call it now. And in these type games, I'm expecting like a moment of brilliance from a player. or a mistake, and it could go either way because obviously Mbappe and Messi, literally whoever scores more goals in this game gets the Golden Boot, could end up with the Golden Ball, and then could write history for their country. So it's tough. It's tough, Mac.
Because as of right now, if Messi and Mbappe finish 1-2, this would be the first time in World Cup history where the leading Golden Boot leaders in the World Cup are from the same team. And the interesting part is, because they're both tied on 5, and that's never happened before for teammates. The interesting part is the only other 2 players that are tied on 4 are Giroud and Alvarez. So they very much could be in it too. So that in and itself is an interesting race. And maybe whoever wins the Golden Ball will help their team win the World Cup. That's as simple as it could be. Because if we're looking at suspects of who are likely to score a goal, it's those 4 mans.
Hey, you know what? Just to be a little bit different from you guys, I'm going to predict the Argentina win in extra time. So just to be a little different, and we'll see. We'll definitely cover what happens in this game, obviously, in our next podcast. And so I think it's a logical step. Sorry, Jay, you had another thought?
Yeah, no, I was just actually scrolling through Twitter, and I guess a lot of people are saying, a lot of people are hyping up this French team. I don't think that's the case. I mean, it might be people that are cheering for the other team that play France and thought they deserved the win. And, it can be argued for sure. But I think this France team deserves the respect that they're getting because they are doing it with a handful of stars, starters on very, prestigious clubs even, high value players that they're missing on the squad. A lot of players that they're missing from, their 2018 win. And they're doing it they're doing it. They're getting the job done. They're getting the job done. So I think, I don't, to whoever thinks that, Twitter loves to talk, but I don't think that's the case. I think they're getting the respect that they deserve, and people should respect this team as they're doing things that haven't been done in over 60 years. So that could do something that hasn't been done in over 60 years. So I just really want to see it happen.
Regardless, history will be made, and we'll be here to cover it. So this concludes our podcast for today. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. Our handle is @houseof_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, feel free to get in touch with us via email as well. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. The next time you hear from us will be Tuesday when we review the 3rd place playoff and the World Cup final for the FIFA 2022 World Cup. Until then, thank you, Mac, for joining us.
Let's go, Argentina.
Thank you, Gio.
Let's go, Mbappe.
And thank you guys for listening. We'll be back.